what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Footcandle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Footcandle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Footcandle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. With me is Chris Fry. We are with the Footcandle Film Society and the annual Footcandle Film Festival coming up last week in September of this year, 2025. We hope to see you there. More about that later. But Chris, how you doing?
I am doing well, and I have officially finished screening all films for the aforementioned 2025 Footcandle Film Festival. I still have to look over some scripts that have been submitted for the screenwriting contest that we have in conjunction with the festival, but film-wise, I'm done. And you and I have actually met and tried to come up with a little bit of a schedule, which is not quite yet finalized.
Right.
But we've had that meeting, so things are moving along.
Yes, they are. So we had close to 400 submissions, right?
Correct.
Film submissions.
Correct.
That you watched all 400.
It was a journey, yes. But yeah, I'm across the finish line.
You single-handedly, Chris, watched more films in the last 4 months than I think I have watched in at least several years.
Well, and thank goodness not all of them are features. Some of them are, a lot.
Yeah,
good number of short films. But yeah, it's a lot.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. I'm glad to see that you're still in the mood, want to talk about movies for a little bit. So, all right. Well, today we've got some films to talk about. First and foremost, we're going to have a review of the newest film by director Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland. It is 28 Years Later. Yes, that is a sequel to the 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later films from a while back. Now we have a return to that storyline, that franchise with 28 Years Later. We're going to be reviewing that film shortly. We've also got a couple of news items to share, a couple of trailers, actually, we're going to play for some upcoming films. One of them, I honestly know nothing about, anxious to see and read about it, along with Chris, you, and the viewers and the listeners. But we also have a second film that I think is going to be one that I know I at least was anticipating and looking forward to hearing about. I've already seen the trailer. I want to get your thoughts on it. That'll be about a certain rock icon, a musical biopic. Because we never have enough musical biopics, Chris.
Right.
Always got to have another one. Well, this one I think could be a big deal next year. We're going to see the trailer for it.
You think they would do musical biopics because they'd probably win Oscars, but for some reason they haven't tapped into that. I don't know why.
Yeah, I know. I question the studio's thoughts on this thing. Anyway, we're going to have some trailers to share about some new movies coming up over the next several months. And then I think we're going to end the show with Chris giving a recommendation of a film that he recently caught up with that he'd like to recommend that we consider doing so as well. So, Chris, that is our plan. We've got to jump right into our first review. Are you ready to get going?
Sure.
All right, here we go with our review of 28 Years Later.
There were so many dead. Infected and non-infected alike.
That's why our home is so precious.
I feel he's a bit young.
He's ready, Jenny.
7, 6, 11, 5.
Once you walk onto that mainland, there's no rescues.
Moving up and down again.
Danny Boyle, the British filmmaker known for Trainspotting, Slumdog Millionaire, and 28 Days Later, has been rather quiet since 2019 other than some TV work. He has re-teamed with writer Alex Garland, with whom he worked on the original 28 Days Later back in 2002, for this film, 28 Years Later. It is rumored that this film is actually one of a trilogy that is going to be a new set of films, new set of 3 films. I guess, of course, a lot of that will depend on how well this film does. But interestingly, the next film, in theory, won't be directed by Danny Boyle, but will have Nia DaCosta come in and direct, but Alex Garland will still write it. And then the third film, Danny Boyle's supposedly going to come back and direct that one, and Alex Garland will have written it as well.
Just a little quick note on that before you finish
Sure.
your intro. So my understanding is they actually filmed this one and the next one kind of back to back. So the second one is definitely happening.
Okay, so Nia DaCosta came in and said, okay,
Yes.
interesting.
The question mark is going to be the third one, and that's going to depend on how they're kind of doing financially on these first two, whether the third one moves forward or not. But my understanding is the second one is
Second
pretty much
one's done.
done deal. Yeah.
Okay, well that's interesting. Don't want to jump ahead in our conversation, but so kind of wrapping up the intro.
Sorry, I threw you off your game there,
you
Chris.
did, but
My
that's
bad.
okay. That's okay because 28 years later, you can kind of guess from the title and the fact, if you're familiar with the fact that there was 28 weeks later, there was 28 days later. What's the storyline of the film? Well, you could probably guess it has to do with zombies. A group of survivors that have survived the rage virus, which originally happened in the 28 Days Later film, are alive on a small island. One of the group decides to leave the island and go on a mission onto the mainland, and then chaos ensues, problems happen, plots develop. So, Alan, you have seen the original 28 Days Later? Yes, no? Oh,
No.
okay. So I'm assuming if you hadn't seen 28 Days Later, you also probably haven't seen 28 Weeks Later.
Correct.
Okay. I did my homework. I'd seen 28 Days Later. I'm a big Danny Boyle fan. Yeah. I saw it when it came out. I had not seen 28 Weeks Later. It was a different director. I'd heard varying responses to it. Never watched it. I watched it the day before I went. I did my
For
homework.
you did your film critic review homework.
And
Yes.
then, I'd finished all the film festival submissions,
Right,
so
you
I
had
was
time.
able to have some time.
Some time.
So I watched 28 Weeks Later. And of course, now I've seen 28 Years Later. Alan, that's actually a good, interesting entry point for you. What was your opinion? You have seen The Walking Dead. I think have you seen all of it?
Pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, for the most, all that really mattered. It kind of tapered off.
tapered
Yeah,
off.
I did watch it
But
all.
you've seen The Walking
And
Dead.
I've also been watching The Last of Us. So,
Okay.
yes, it's very,
So
I'm
the
glad you brought up that
apocalyptic
reference
genre,
because
okay.
the whole apocalyptic, people turning into zombies type of milieu.
Have you ever seen Night of the Living Dead?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you just
I'm on board.
happened to see the starting
Well,
point
here's
for this
the funny
franchise.
thing is that
but-
I
okay.
really am a big fan of Danny Boyle as well. And so I had somehow convinced myself that I had seen 28 Days Later. That was just in my head. I think it's just because maybe I just knew enough about it and I've seen so many other zombie things. It's just in my head, I'm like,
feel like you have.
I've seen it. I got it.
Sure.
And then as I started doing like my prep for this film, I'm just like, I'm looking back through Letterboxd rankings. I'm looking back through my log. I'm just like, wait a minute. Have I never seen that film? I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen it. And then I'm like, well, I can't go out and see it right away because I was not able to make time before going to see this movie. And I'm like, and plus if I saw 28 Days Later, then I feel like I'd have to see 28 Weeks Later. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make the call that I'm going into this one fresh.
Okay.
It was not my intention, but that is what I did. I went into it fresh.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Movies need to, even in franchises, a good movie should be able
to exist
stand
on
on
its
its
own.
own terms.
I
Now,
agree.
maybe it benefits
Yeah.
from things that came before it, but if it's good enough, it should be able to stand on its own terms. So, with all that being said, what do you think of 28 Years Later? And apparently, the second one's already been made, but are you interested in seeing any more? You haven't seen anything previous in this
No,
universe.
this is all new to me.
You
So,
saw
yeah.
this. What were your thoughts? And are you interested in seeing anything further? Take it away.
Loved it. And yes. So
Okay.
I really liked this movie
Okay.
for various reasons. I think, yes, I'll admit it got to a point a little early on where I'm just like, okay, I feel like I've seen this so many times in so many other different formats. You mentioned The Walking Dead. I mentioned The Last of Us. You mentioned Night of the Living Dead. Yes, all that. There's a point in the film early on where I'm just like, okay, am I just feel like I'm just reliving a lot of those same other formats of this type of story. And there are some moments where I did feel like, all right, yeah, I kind of feel like I've seen this. I know what's going on.
Okay.
What the film succeeds in to me is that it didn't follow those same pathways. It explored some very different dynamics than what I thought the film was going to explore. And it had enough creative, interesting moments, some interesting scenes, some interesting characters that kept my engagement level high the whole way through. Plus, you had the fact that I think Danny Boyle is visually a master at crafting films. And you mentioned that he had kind of been a little silent. Well, honestly, the last film he did was Yesterday,
right?
Which I did not like.
You saw it. Did we review it on the show?
We reviewed it.
Okay.
Did not care for it.
It was the cold, like Beatles, what if the Beatles never existed, but somehow this guy knew all their music.
Concept was cool, but the film I thought was pretty boring and lackluster.
He didn't write it.
He didn't write it, but I think
he directed it.
It didn't have any of the panache and style that I associated with Danny Boyle as a filmmaker.
Gotcha.
And I think that's what was the most disappointing. I just kind of assumed, okay, well, he's kind of done. He's hit his max. He this is what he does, and he's not really interested in doing those movies anymore. But then I see 28 years later, and within the first few minutes, I'm just like, ooh, okay. Visually, we're back in the game a little bit. I see some creativity being thrown at the screen. I see some interesting selections for how he wants to film certain elements. I mean, no, I'm on board. So I did really enjoy this film. I felt like it added enough to whatever this franchise in. Again, not having seen the other two films.
Sure.
I'm assuming it's adding something to it. I'm assuming it is different than what the other two films were showing and presenting. I don't know. I don't care. This one worked for me as it is. I'm very excited about where this is going to go. And I got to credit Alex Garland, the writer, because again, I think Danny Boyle made it visually interesting to watch. I think Alex Garland, the writer, there's obviously some things on his brain that he wanted to get into this film that are interesting concepts, interesting topics that I'm curious to explore as well. So with that, I liked it quite a bit, and I can go into more specifics, but as always, I like to kick it over to you and you can give me your overview of what you thought of 28 Years Later.
Sure. So having seen the first two films, I really liked 28 Days Later. I did at the time. I hadn't seen a lot of zombie films. I don't think I'd seen any of the Walking. Still haven't seen a lot of the Walking Dead, but I don't think I'd seen any of the Walking Dead. I don't even know if it was around when this came out. But anyways, hadn't even actually seen. This may have been one of the first zombie movies I saw. Maybe other than Shaun.
Well,
Shaun
I think when
maybe.
28 Days Later came out, the zombie thing was not. It was not a big genre
It
yet.
kind of like jump started
that
it again.
film kind of kick-started people talking about it, and then you got like World War Z later on, and you got The Walking Dead. You got all these things starting up. Yeah.
So I liked it. Cillian Murphy, who was really good in it, and a lot of it was like the visual style. Because I remember it coming out like the footage is really rough, and people were like, "Wait, is this shot intentionally this way?" And the answer is yes. But and all the like kind of disorienting editing and all the jump cutting and just crazy camera work, disorient. Yes, all that was very Danny Boyle, kind of established him. Similar type stuff happened in like Train Spotting when they're like chasing people and so on. But anyways, like 28 Days Later. 28 Weeks Later was interesting that I'd never seen it. It's not as strong as I would say either of these films, but something that I noticed in it, I still think it's worth seeing if you like these films, is it starts a motif of like bad dad and people making bad decisions. Bad dad meaning in that film, a father lies to his kids and says the mom's dead. And ends up mom's not dead. He just abandoned her. And then things kind of go south. Okay. So that's 28 Weeks Later. 28 Years Later, obviously with this film, things haven't cleared up. Things are kind of bad. But in this film, we also had bad dad. So I thought it was interesting. 2 films in a row in this franchise, we have,
bad-ish dad.
Bad-ish dad.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point for this film. Anyway,
I feel like it's interesting, but I feel like it's actually, it was Aaron Taylor Johnson plays the dad of Spike, who is a young boy in this film. The first, let's see, I don't know if you could really, I think it's, if you divide it into 2.5 parts, the first part is him taking Spike, the kind of mentioned in the intro, onto the mainland to kind of prove he's it's
a little bit of a rite of passage
coming of
for
age
a young,
type thing.
young
And
person.
he mentions, is he supposed to be 12 or 13?
He's 12.
Okay, he's 12. Normally this doesn't happen until
14.
like 14. So he's kind of rushing it a little bit. And just the fact, I just kind of was questioning that. And then there's some family issues there.
Yes.
So Aaron Taylor Johnson, he's okay as an actor. We've seen him in bunches of other things. With this, for some reason, I didn't see Craven the Hunter.
His epic tour de
Yes,
force
his epic tour.
performance. Yes.
But I guess there was a problem where I didn't. Okay, whether or not he's a bad dad, I didn't like the dad.
Right.
And
Well, I think it's
and
fair to say you
know-
can not
I don't
like
know
him.
if that was because I was frustrated there wasn't a little bit more development with him, or I felt he was just making bad choices. But and maybe it was because I'd come off 28 weeks later. I was like,
Maybe.
what's this with like, fathers not being so. Anyways, that first part of the film, I was kind of a little bored with. Then we get kind of the second part where Spike tries to help his mom.
Yeah.
That is when the film kind of was like, okay, here we go. This is interesting. And then kind of the 0.5, I'll say, is not to jump too much, but I'm curious. I think you must have really liked it because of how you said. It was maybe a Boyle touch, which I'll touch on some Boyle touches, seeing like how you felt about it, that didn't necessarily work for me. And it was a Kill Bill-esque zombie battle.
Oh, okay. Well, I know.
Okay, so that was kind of the 0.5 that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Now, seeing as how you've said the second film in this new trilogy has already been shot, I'm wondering. It was kind of an odd place but I'm wondering if that was kind of like a first scene of the next film.
I'm almost
okay.
Well, only because the main character in that little coda
Yes.
sequence,
Who had been teased at the very beginning of the film.
he was, and also he's pretty prominent in the credits, although he's only in a final scene in this movie. The word is he is a much more dominant character in the second movie.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
So that's revealing how I feel about it. But
All right. But now we can talk about that ending coda. It's a little bit of a spoilery thing, but there's an interesting backstory to that coda.
Okay.
I'll share with you. I can maybe, I don't know if I'll do it on mic or not, but anyway, the character, yes, the mannerisms of Jimmy, the character that we meet at the very end, is based off of a real person. Yeah. This is where it gets really weird. I'll explain that to you.
Well,
later.
that may actually be a little bit of kind of a Garland Boyle touch that
Yes.
maybe with that knowledge, I can maybe appreciate it.
I think you will appreciate it when I give you the backstory, because I was curious about it. It did not work for me on viewing.
Oh, it really
but
didn't
has
work for
worked.
me.
It has now worked for me after reading and learning more about it.
Okay. So we won't spoil anything about that. Coming back to,
Yeah, you go back to the main part of
this
the film.
zombie
Yeah.
film,
Yeah.
the fact that it's a sequel, generally, I wasn't excited. But when I heard Garland and Danny Boyle were reteaming, I was like, okay, that is interesting. I'm hoping that if they've left this much time, there's something that they want to investigate. And I feel like there is, and I'll get to kind of my favorite part of the film, or I've kind of said that second part was my favorite part. And I'll say, without spoiling anything, it has to do with Jodie Comer, who plays the mom of Spike, kind of her arc, and found it silently devastating. And I'll say one of the things I did not expect with the sequel to a zombie film, 23 years in the making, I did not expect to get a little dusty in the theater.
Yeah.
And it did. And I was like, wow, okay. Now, in a way, not knowing anything that you've apparently found out on the internet, that I thought they were trying to kind of, just turn it on its head by having the Kill Bill-esque zombie battle not long after, like kind of as a kind of like, okay, no, we're not going to be like overly serious. Like, but I found it jarring, but you're going to, explain to me maybe why it works because it's based on a real person. I will say that Boyle is kind of frantic, frenetic, all over the place, throws a lot of stuff at you, imagery wise, like you say, he's kind of a master. So I felt like that was a Boyle touch maybe, that didn't work for me. Starting with the Teletubbies did work for me because it was a throwback to, 2002 or whatever, like where that was on TV a lot, kids watching that. The kinetic editing, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, the Boyle touches that I feel like had been gone in something like Yesterday from 2019, I felt like they were back here. they worked. Something that I found, and maybe because I've been out of the world of Danny Boyle for a while, and I haven't rewatched 28 Days Later. In the trailer for this film, which I thought was super effective, they used a poem. I think it's called Boots. It was like a Rudyard Kipling thing that had an actor recite it, and they used that audio, and it was very effective and jarring and creepy. In the film, I think they used it a little bit, but they also used some kind of like stock footage from old movies of like their Crusades and stuff like that. And I guess it worked, but I wasn't really sure what it was trying to do or say, other than just add to kind of like the scattershot kinetic all over the place. They would show people like in the Crusades, like firing arrows and things, which, the way this society is now, they don't have guns anymore. They defend themselves on this one little island using a lot of arrows and stuff. But I don't know, it just didn't, I felt like it was kind of like too direct, kind of like one-to-one. It seemed a little odd to me that it didn't, other than like saying, hey, look, it's kind of like we're in the Crusades again. I was like, okay. And that's supposed to be like, I don't know. It felt a little odd.
Yeah. It totally worked for me.
Okay.
But I get it. I mean, it's like, it took a little bit of getting it adjusted to once I realized what they were doing, but I like it. I mean, yeah, and it's a little on the nose that, okay, we're throwing back and, we kind of start this whole film watching a TV set, and like, it's kind of like, this is what we are recalling. This is what we're remembering from past media and all that. And it's almost like the film is kind of playing on this idea of memories of like, you got to imagine that the people that have now formed this civilization were inspired by these old movies that were generations before. And it's like, again, this is kind of how we are as a society now. So it worked. And it more than anything, what Danny Boyle's, I think, filmmaking does is it adds chaos to situations. It adds uncertainty to situations. It adds frenetic energy to it. And that's, I think, what I was feeding off of. So I was fine with it just throwing stuff at the screen and making me kind of process it as I go. That's what I think I just responded so well to it because I kind of have been missing that with a lot of movies in recent times. I kind of like just this is just, we're throwing this stuff at you. Your brain can process it the way you want to process it. And that totally worked for me. So anyway,
I think too, what kind of stood apart for me, I mean, I guess in Last of Us, you have the younger girl, Ellie, is that her name? But she's not as young as Spike is supposed to be. I don't think she's 12.
Correct.
And I thought Alfie Williams, the guy who plays Spike, I thought he was really good.
Really good.
And that was something for me that was kind of original, because at first you have Aaron Taylor Johnson as like the dad, and you're like, okay, he's going to be like the main character. And it's like, no, it really becomes more of like Spike's film. So Spike having to like come of age, it's like a coming of age zombie movie. So that to me was unique. And the fact that he has to take on responsibilities, and I was like, okay, Spike becomes the Joel in Last of Us. Joel, like Spike becomes it, and you're like, okay.
No, I thought that was a great
kind of a new
turn
thing.
In that. Yes, I fully anticipated Aaron Taylor Johnson, who I think is fine in this. I'm not a big fan of him as an actor in a lot of roles, but I do think this is probably the part he does best. He's kind of he's not the best guy in the world. Yes, I agree. He has a lot of faults. There's some issues with him. But I think there's a deeper foundation to him that the film touches on a bit, and I got a feeling is maybe going to be explored later on, because my understanding is he is also in the next movie.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So we'll see. But I think that's interesting. I think there could be something there with that. But I love the fact that the film was daring enough to say, you know what? No, we introduced this big actor guy. He's going to be in the first little bit. But then the film is shifting to, it's the son.
The son.
And the son is the star of the film. Mm-hmm. And we're following this.
Which I was not expecting.
I was not either. And I loved it. The fact, once I realized that's where we were going, I'm like, perfect. Sign me up. I'm on board. And it becomes his film. And then Jodie Comer's character as his mother kind of playing a more integral part than I expected early on.
Yep. Agree.
And it all leads to, I think the film progresses so nicely as it goes, where at first 20-30 minutes I'm like, I feel like I've seen this movie before, I feel like I know where this is going, and then it doesn't go there,
right?
And then by the time we get to I mean, he's in the credits. He's in the, when we get to Ray Fiennes, like to me, the film is like, oh my gosh, this is a different film for me. And I'm loving everything it's built to.
Okay.
Anyway,
so the Spike taking his mother on the road to try to help her. That's when the film kicks into gear. And then, he's in the trailer. He's all over.
It's not a
you know,
surprise.
Ray Fiennes is in this film. His character, which he plays Dr. something with a K, Dr. Kelson.
Yeah.
His character was very interesting. And I loved the way they kind of gave you some things, but not what you expect. And it was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really well done. And he was a very pivotal character. And I think as soon as he came on screen, you're like, okay, the movie's already kicked into gear. And then he came on screen and the things that were happening around, I'm like, yeah, this is not what I expected. And this is the reason this movie exists. This is why Garland and Boyle made this.
Yes.
And it was just, it really won me over. Not that it was bad before that, but it was well made. I felt like I could see the Boyle hallmarks of like editing. But this is like, okay, this
is where they're
why.
trying to get to.
Right.
I completely agree. And it needed all these pieces at the beginning to lead it to this point where you felt this kind of height when you got to that point in the film. I think it all was necessary to get there in hindsight. Ray Fiennes as Dr. Kelson. Great. So good. Such an interesting character, such an interesting setting for his character. And I love the fact that it's kind of playing with expectations of what a character like this is going to be.
Right.
Because he's kind of hinted at and talked about as we got up to him. And then it very much subverted those expectations when you get there. And then, like you said, it leading to the emotional beats that the film was willing to go to by the end. It just worked. So no, I was on board. I like the fact that the last 30 minutes of this film is not a zombie movie. And that was not the intention. It's a movie about life and death. And it's a film about, moving on and embracing and accepting the finality of things. It just had a much bigger message at that point to share, which I love for that fact.
Something that was unique too, which I guess in the first two films, the zombies, the big thing that happened in 28 Days Later that I recall, I'm not a zombie aficionado, so people can correct me, write in, whatever, correct me. The big thing that made the zombies in that film unique were that they could run really fast.
They were really fast.
And that was unique because most of the time zombies are infected, but they
Right.
can't like chase you down and get to you.
You
because
just run away and you're good.
And you're pretty good.
Safe,
I mean, they can chase you, but not at a clip speed. These guys are like frantic. They can I'm not going to say they can run faster than you can, but they can at least run as fast as you can.
Well, according to the movie, they cannot run faster than any of the main characters because the main characters always are able to slightly outpace the zombies just enough to get to the next scene.
So maybe they can run 90% of the speed
right.
you can.
It's got to be close, but not quite 100%.
But two of the interesting things they did with this film were they showed you a little bit of differentiation within the zombie species, which they did not do for the first two films. We have slow-moving zombies, which they did
lethargic zombies
that crawl on the ground,
been
basically.
eating too many worms or whatever else for too long. Yes.
Those didn't exist in the first two. And then also you have, I guess they refer to them as alphas.
The alphas. Yeah.
Which they were not in the first two films either.
No.
So I guess in the 28 years that this rage virus has progressed, it's kind of, there have been some, which seems like something that would happen, that things do slightly mutate, change, there's a hierarchy. So I thought that was a good addition to the lore.
I loved it. So, I loved the fact that we were introduced to the alphas. That just added a whole nother layer. Because again, in that first little bit of the film, again, I just felt like, okay, yes, I've seen guys going through the woods and trying to get to somewhere and they're attacked by zombies and you got to fight them off and I'm like, all right, there's got to be more to this film than this. And luckily there was.
And through things like Last of Us, you've seen people have fortresses using arrows, like all this stuff.
Kind of live in a very similar civilization. Right. Yes, we've seen all this.
Right.
So that's why the first third of the film, I'm enjoying it. It's well done, but I'm not getting anything out of it.
I got you.
Unique until we change up and it becomes a different plot involving Spike and the mother, on their way to meet and confront Dr. Kelson. That's
Right.
when the film is like, okay, now we're getting somewhere interesting. And the steps along the way, I'm just going to point out a scene that I thought was fascinating.
Okay.
And it's just something you haven't seen in a film like this before. I'll just say it is a delivery scene in a train.
Yes.
That's a scene where I'm just like, okay, now you're dropping something on us that is very different. I don't know where this is going. And I'm fascinated with what it's saying about
The train delivery,
characters,
the
yes.
train delivery scene, fascinating as well. And also, so that equally as fascinating as the Ray Fiennes stuff, like some stuff like
those kind of back to back. That whole broader sequence to me is where the film really locks in on what it's trying to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So without, we've complimented the film. I am, positive. Sounds like you may even be more positive
think
than
I
I am.
am. Yeah.
Although I'm pretty positive on it. But it's that last Kill Bill zombie-esque battle. Without spoiling anything, are you able to give me any
I can tell you
justification?
no, look.
Not just, but like make me feel better about it.
So, and this, yeah. Okay. I think I can explain this.
Okay.
So, we meet Sir Jimmy Crystal,
Yes.
who is, turns out is a character we met earlier in the film.
Yeah, he was a little kid. Right.
That's right. But he is now a grown adult at
Right.
the end of the
28
film.
years later.
This is after the whole main plot line is kind of done. So Spike is, his whole storyline has kind of settled in
Yeah.
to where he is now,
And
where he finds himself in life.
I guess technically it's curious to me. Maybe again, it seems like this almost could have been a wackadoodle credit scene, like after all the credits, but instead
It could have been.
they went ahead and put it. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
pretty extended.
And I think, again, if they had not already been planning the second movie and already filmed it, and it was going to be coming out next year, I think it's sometime in 2026.
You're right. Yeah, supposedly.
It's like, then, this would be a weird end scene to end the film on. But I think the fact that it is very clearly setting up something important.
Okay. So go ahead.
So here's the deal. In British history, there is a character. There was a celebrity. His name was Jimmy Savile.
Okay.
He was a British celebrity television TV host. He did there were shows that he was involved in. He was very well known.
Okay.
And he is the spitting image of all of these Jimmys that you meet in this final sequence.
Okay.
Now, here's the deal
With
about
like
Jimmy.
track suits and stuff. Okay.
Yes. I mean, I've seen real pictures of the guy. That is totally him.
Okay.
They're totally riffing on this character.
Okay.
Here's the thing that's interesting about this character, Jimmy Savile. He was very famous. This was I'm trying to give you a little more specifics, but basically he was a very famous character. However, he passed away in the early 2000s, I think.
Okay.
After he passed away, all of these allegations came up about him, coming to find out that he was a pretty bad guy. Like a lot of sexual harassment, a lot of sexual escapades, a lot of bad things he did.
Huh. Okay.
So Alex Garland, I read a little quick interview with him after seeing the film.
And he's
last night.
British.
He is
as
British.
well as-
Alex Garland is British.
So this probably makes
Danny
a lot
Boyle
of
is
sense to
British.
people.
It makes a little more sense there.
Okay.
Supposedly people who know about this character are kind of freaking out seeing this at the end of the film because it totally makes sense for them. Here's what the deal is though.
Okay.
Alex Garland is quoted as saying that he wanted to kind of play with this idea that the lack of information that we had in this new society that they've crafted in this film series,
Okay.
that these are all people that kind of were hero worshiping this guy from British celebrity, maybe without knowing further information because they have been cut off now from society to some degree. Like, in other words, they are not in tune with the full story about this person that they are kind of doing a little hero worshiping on. So there's a little bit of that involved in it. So it's a little bit of a commentary on how we perceive people and how we know about people from media and communications. And if we're cut off from that, how we could actually have completely different perceptions of these characters. And we are taking our own mythology of these characters and kind of creating our own thing from it. Anyway, there's a much bigger message going on there,
Okay.
but I get it. It was also very jarring when I saw it. the ending, it's like, okay, that was interesting.
Because if the film would have ended kind of before that, I think I would have had a totally different
it was a
feeling walking out of the
It
theater.
was a very clear ending.
Sure.
That I think would have worked. It would have been a kind of a devastating ending, I think, but it would have been what the film warranted at that point.
Well, and it still was making you curious about a sequel
Sure,
because of
it
how
does.
it. But then this ending was just kind of like,
This is definitely
wait,
more
what's
of a
this?
post-credit. We want to set up this world and we're going to set up for the next movie. They just decided to go ahead and throw it in right there before the credits start, and it threw people off. It threw a lot of people in my audience off, I could tell. But
Right.
I liked it, and I liked the fact that after kind of reading about it a little bit more, I'm like, okay, there's something more here than just, hey, let's just kind of have a cool set of people have a cool fight at the end of the film. It was definitely bonkers. It was definitely out of left field, but I do like it. I've come to appreciate the ending.
Okay.
Okay. What else is there to say about 28 years later, Chris? I mean, I think I think Aaron Taylor Johnson was good. I think Jodie Comer was good. Jodie Comer had an interesting role to play that I thought was going to be a very stereotypical role at the beginning, and come to find out it actually did not go the direction I expected it to. And I think she had a wonderful set of ending scenes.
Yes. There's also
character.
a scene with her and Alfie. Is it a church? Some type of like, it's a night
You mean
scene.
Spike?
Sorry.
It was a character. You said Alfie, yeah.
The Alfie's the guy who played him, but yeah, Spike.
Right, yeah.
With the Jodie Comer and Alfie Williams, they playing, son and
yeah.
mom. But they're in like they're starting to make this journey, and they stop for the night at, let's say it's a church, some type of building,
Mm-hmm.
but something that happens during the night. There was something really cool with like an expectation that there again was kind of flipped. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, what happened? And it was awesome. So,
No, I really think Jodie Comer, when I first saw her first few scenes, she's playing the mother and there's something wrong with her. She's having some sort of health issues.
right.
And it just seemed like, oh gosh, they're just going to let her play this type of character the whole movie. And that's going to be something we have to contend with. No, I think once they got on the road and kind of that journey begins, you start to understand her a little bit more. You start to see a little bit maybe what she's facing. And obviously after they have their confrontation with the Ralph Fiennes character, you get a little more explanation of things. And it's like, okay. And her role just really, really worked for me by the end of her appearance on the film. And can I just say too, I think from a production design standpoint, I remember I was really thinking a lot about Alex Garland's Annihilation film.
Sure.
Because there are some interesting use of structures and things out in the wild.
And
that
they've
are
kind of
just-
been overtaken. Yeah, sure.
And I think when you get to I'll just say the bone, what do they call it? The bone.
I'm guessing
Bone
maybe.
Palace?
Yeah, or
Bone-
actually, because I think supposedly the temporary title of the next film is Bone Temple.
Bone Temple.
So maybe that's-
I was going to say the Bone Temple. Everything having to do with the bones, I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
Disturbing.
Yep.
But awesome.
Yes.
And so well done. And it's just, yes, I loved every bit of the Bone Temple with its guide, Dr. Kelson, through that. It was amazing. So yeah, this is definitely a film that built to a point where I got ecstatic about it, and it took a while to get there, but once it got there, it made the rest of the experience so much more worthwhile.
Okay.
And did end on a bonkers note, but I'm okay with that because I do feel like it is going somewhere with that, and I'm curious to see where it
You
goes.
have made me feel better about the bonkers note because of saying like, no, it wasn't just to kind of jerk you out of that moment, that emotional moment, kind of like, no, this is just a zombie movie. No, it's trying to do something more, which is interesting. And we'll see possibly in the next film how that plays out.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, that is 28 years later. Sounds like we're positive on it. You're right. I think I might be a little bit more positive than you, but that, it's all good. We were both pretty happy with the outcome, I think, overall of the film. Anxious to see the next iteration. I am personally very excited to see it. We'll have to look forward to seeing what that looks like. Yeah, so that's great. As always, Chris will give you some information at the end of the show of how you could let us know your thoughts of the film if you saw it or you have some agreement or disagreement with anything we might have said about 28 years later. With that, Chris, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, we've got a couple of trailers and news items to share and Chris's review or a recommendation of a film for us. So stay tuned. You're listening to Foot Candle Films. We'll be right back in a moment.
Want to discover great podcasts or maybe even start one of your own? Welcome to The Mesh, Western North Carolina's podcast network built for creators and listeners alike. From local sports and business to comedy and culture, The Mesh is home to unique voices and fresh perspectives. Do you have something you want to say? The Mesh can help you bring your podcast to life with the tools, support, and platform you need to be heard. Check us out at themesh.tv, where great podcasts live and new ones are born.
Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. Chris and I had our review of 28 Years Later at the beginning of the show. Both a positive review on that. Me a little more positive than Chris, but still positive all the way around. Excited for the next installment next year. If you're a fan of zombie movies, if you're a fan of the original, if you're a fan of Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, I think there's enough here to work with, and you're going to have an interesting viewing experience.
Yes.
Okay. Chris, let's jump right into our news and our trailers.
Okay.
We have 2 trailers I want to share with you. One of them I have seen, one of them I have not. Let's hit the one I have seen first.
Okay.
Probably will be a bigger film than the other one I'm going to mention, but we will see how it turns out. It is a musical biopic that... Chris, did you have something you wanted to say about this film? You kind of wanted to bring up in the news. I'm ready to show it.
Yeah, I have not seen the trailer, but I knew of it, so I was wanting to see it and discuss it. Yeah.
The film's title is Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. All right. So, in case you're wondering, it is a biopic about Bruce Springsteen. I don't know if you picked up on that from the title.
Not any other
having
famous
his last
Springsteen,
name
but
in the
yes,
title.
Got you.
There's no other musical people I know of named Springsteen that are famous in pop culture. This is a Bruce Springsteen biographical drama. It is starring Jeremy Allen White as Bruce Springsteen. And the movie is all about the making of Springsteen's album in 1982, Nebraska. So Nebraska was the album. He was starting to get some buzz. He was kind of starting to get known. He'd put out an album or two before, but he was working on Nebraska. That was going to be the album that kind of put him on the map.
But before Born in the USA.
Before Born in the USA. Yep.
All right.
So the film is not really, as far as I understand, not really covering that period of time. It is all about the making of this album that would really cement Springsteen as an artist that people know.
Interesting.
Because I think Nebraska was the album that came out right before he did Born in the USA.
Right.
All right.
Which even I had a copy of as a kid.
Yeah.
So.
Nebraska... Does Nebraska have Born to Run in it? Like the song Born to Run?
Oh, you're going way deeper in
I think it does.
Springsteen lore than I know.
Maybe. Anyway, I'll have to check on that.
Okay.
I'm not a huge,
Springsteen fan?
a huge Springsteen fan.
Sure.
I do like Bruce Springsteen, but I could not rattle off like his album titles and all this stuff. I just know that I do love Born to Run. I think it's a wonderful song. I do like Born in the USA as an album. I do own that. I think it's great. But Nebraska, I'm not quite sure how much about it, so I'm kind of anxious to see the film.
Okay.
So let's take a look at the trailer for Springsteen, and I'm going to say colon every time I say the title now.
Fair enough.
Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, starring Jeremy Allen White as the titular character. Let's check out the trailer and see what you think, Chris.
It's a 305 V8.
Never owned a new car before.
It's awfully fitting for a handsome devil rock star. I do know who you are.
Well, that makes one of us.
Hey, boss, can you do a mic check?
How's that sound?
Looks about right.
Don't need to be perfect. I want it to feel like I'm in the room by myself.
Yeah.
Let's try one.
Here's what I want you to understand. This is not about either one of us. This is not about the charts. This is about Bruce Springsteen.
All right, so that is the trailer for Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. Chris, your initial thoughts, quick takes on this trailer.
20th Century Fox said, oh, you What was the Dylan biopic? I totally missed the name of it.
A Complete Unknown.
Complete Unknown. It's like, oh, you didn't want to give Complete Unknown any Oscars? Okay, well, we're going to give you something. We're gonna try again. Deliver Me from Nowhere.
Take two.
It's the same studio, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Chalamet doing Dylan looked perfect. Jeremy Allen White doing Springsteen looks perfect. I think what it is like a certain sliced time period, just like that film was a certain sliced time period for Dylan. Looks good. Will it turn some people off maybe because it's being too earnest, which I think is something the Dylan pick didn't have to worry about because of how he's like all over the place. Like you can't pin him down, but this one it's like, Springsteen. Yeah, I don't know, but it
does play a little hero worship in the trailer, which does concern me a little bit.
Sure.
I mean, I like my musical biopics in general. I want them to be warts and all. I don't want to feel like I'm watching a varnished executive produced by the artist that it's actually telling the story of, and it's all going to really paint this perfect rosy picture. I want to see all sides of a character to make it work. That's my only concern with this. Otherwise, I think it looks really good. Written and directed by Scott Cooper, which may not be a name we recognize, but he did the film Crazy Heart that Jeff Bridges starred in, and I think won an Oscar for Best Actor for performance for that film, I believe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also love the fact that we got Paul Walter Hauser in it. We've got, Mark Maron's in this. I don't think he was in the trailer, but he is in the film. Gabby Hoffman plays Springsteen's mom in the film.
Okay.
And we saw
the guy from Succession.
Jeremy Strong.
Yeah.
Jeremy Strong is his manager. John Landau plays his confidant and manager in the film.
Okay.
So all those pieces together, yes, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I think it looks great. Again, my only concern is, will it be a truly honest look at Springsteen, or are we going to get a little bit of a glossy, Oscar-ready portrayal? That's all we're going to do.
And this comes out this year, correct?
Yeah, it comes out October 24th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So between this and The Naked Gun, Paul Walter Hauser, happy to see him.
He's got quite a year.
Yeah, happy to see him have the range there.
He's going to have quite the fall to enjoy here,
yes,
for sure. Yeah. Good. So that is the trailer for Springsteen, Deliver Me From, what was it? Deliver Me From what?
Nowhere.
Deliver Me From Nowhere. All right. Let's roll into a second trailer we've got. This one is a brand new one I have not seen yet. Just came out, I think, yesterday. Okay. The film is called Splitsville. And I am reading about it for the first time. The only reason it popped up on my notice is because it is being released by Neon Studios, which generally like films by Neon. It's not quite A24, but it's
Neon and A24. Yeah, they're pretty close. Yeah.
And this is also starring a Miss Dakota Johnson, who I feel like is kind of running in a really good spot right now. A Materialist, the film that she's in that released a couple weeks ago, is for an A24 release, has actually done really good, and supposedly is a good film, and I'm kind of anxious to see it. Haven't got a chance to catch up with it yet. She seems to be writing a little bit. She got past the Madam Web stigma, and I think is getting into some good projects that she's doing some good work in. This film, Splitsville, it follows two characters, Carrie and Ashley, played by Kyle Marvin. Not familiar with him as an actor, and Ashley, who is Adria Arjona. We saw her in Hitman.
Got you.
What was the director's name that did Hitman?
If you wouldn't have, he's the guy who did Before Sunrise. Linklater.
Richard Linklater's Hitman. And also she's in the TV show Andor, the Star Wars TV show.
All right.
Anyway, Kyle Martin, Adrian Arjona are Carrie and Ashley, who find themselves at a crossroads after 1 year of marriage. When Ashley asks for a divorce, Carrie finds himself running into his two friends, Julie, played by Dakota Johnson, and Paul, who is played by Michael Angelo Corvino, who is also the director of the film.
Oh.
And he goes to them for support. They reveal that the secret to happiness in their marriage is having an open relationship.
Oh.
So then all things start to go on a collision course.
This
from
is
there.
probably rated G, right?
Oh yeah. It's a
Okay.
Disney film.
Gotcha.
It's all good. So yes, this is the second feature film by Michael Angelo Corvino. He did a debut. His debut film was called The Climb back in 2019.
Not familiar with it.
I'm not familiar with it either. But let's take a look at the trailer for this film and see if we get anything from it. It did have its world premiere at the 2025 Cannes Film Festival. It received a 6-minute standing ovation, Chris, which you know how I am about standing ovations.
Yes.
6 minutes. It's not great.
It's not Mission Impossible great.
No, but it's not bad either. 6
Okay.
minutes, there's something there. There's something
People did
responded
stand.
to.
They did ovate. So that's good.
So here, Splitsville is also co-written by both Corvino and the other actor, Martin. Kyle Martin.
Okay.
Marvin. So the two of them are the writers, and Corvino is also the director. So let's take a look at the film trailer and see if we get anything from it. And I'm looking for it here. Our intern did not have it queued up for me like I asked for it to. God, I'm so frustrated with our intern.
Yeah.
Chris,
dock his pay.
I tell you what. All right. Let's see if this gets me the trailer. All right. Oh, we're queuing it up.
By the way, Julie and I had sex last night.
Maybe when I get divorced.
Please don't say that.
I'm unfaithful. I've been unfaithful.
Just one time? 2? Please don't make me count 3.
Carrie!
All right. So that is the trailer for Splitsville. Chris, any just immediate reactions?
Reminds me of a film that was released by A24 earlier this year that we had on the schedule to see. Neither one of us made it to see it. I don't believe either one of us. I know I haven't seen it yet. Friendship.
All right. Yes.
Awkward comedy, but cringe comedy with like relationship between a guy and his next door neighbor trying to get friends. This, Splitsville. Funny, looks like it's supposed to be a comedy, but yet very cringy about relationships and marriages falling apart and affairs. Wow, whole lot going on there. It would make for an interesting feature with which is more cringy, Splitsville or Friendship, and see which one would win out.
Well, I'll have to catch up with both of them to make that assessment. But I wasn't sure what to expect getting into this, but obviously it's going for a comedy, but yes, with some maybe heavier themes kind of under the surface as well. So I think it looks great. I think it looks fun. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, it looks interesting. Definitely, something different.
Yes. So very curious too. I may be kind of curious to go back and see
The Climb.
The Climb, his first film.
Wonder if it was a comedy.
Don't know.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to look to find out. But I do know that as far as release dates on that, it is set to release August 22nd.
Okay.
So we got that coming up here in just a couple months. Looks to be a actual theatrical release.
Okay.
Doesn't appear to be going to streaming, so it will be something you'll head out to the theaters to go check out on or around August 22nd. Splitsville. All right, Chris. We are at the last part of the show. I need to get your recommendation. Chris always likes to provide a recommendation of a film that we ought to check out, and it's one that he caught up with recently. So, Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you. What do you have to recommend for us today on this episode?
So I'm going to recommend a film that just came out maybe within the past month or so. And it kind of, we've talked about 28 years later on this episode, which was kind of in a franchise that is going to be ongoing. This film is Predator, Killer of Killers, and it is Dan Trachtenberg who directed Prey. Now he's directed this, and this was a series of 3 animated shorts that were put together and released on Hulu. But then he's also directing the Predator Badlands that will be coming out in theaters.
A lot of words, a lot of the use of the word predator. You just put in that
yes.
sentence there.
So Dan Trachtenberg, he did the Cloverfield films. Like I said, he did Prey, and you and I were both like that film. That was kind of, people thought was kind of an attempt to relaunch the Predator franchise after some stumbles. And he has a feature film that is coming out in theaters later in a couple of months. But this was interesting because I saw it pop up, saw some people have positive reviews of it. So I watched it. I mean, is it the greatest thing ever? No, but it's interesting to me because it does take 3 different stories, all that are actually kind of in throughout human history. There's a Viking story, there's kind of a feudal Japan ninja story, and a World War II pilot story, but all have interactions with a predator.
So it's kind of doing what Prey was doing with the kind of colonial Native American time. It was just doing that with different time periods.
Right. So doing that whole idea, but in 3 different time periods, and tying them together in an interesting fashion. And in theory, I guess kind of setting the stage for what may or may not be happening in Badlands. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I just think Trachtenberg really seems to be kind of locked in on this predator nature. And instead of just giving you the typical, instead of having this film just be another, like he could have chosen the feudal Japan thing and like, okay, instead of Prey with the Native Americans, let's do Predator with ninjas. And that could have been all this film was. But instead, he kind of chopped it up. You know, he's pretty good, I think, at iterating on a theme and making it a little different. Mm-hmm. So it made me, I was interested to hear about Badlands, but then when you and I watched the trailer, I was like, oh, I don't know, it seems really heavy CGI a little bit. I was a little concerned, but I still am interested because it's Dan Trachtenberg. And after seeing this, I'm like, you know what? I'm definitely going to check out Badlands.
So it's got you kind of, you're in the Predator franchise right now. You're ready to see what comes next. And the animated selections you thought were good. So.
Yeah, and they were just an interesting way. And this is, you could probably guess, not for children. Mm. This is extremely, extremely violent. And actually, if you remember a couple of years ago, they did the adaptation of a Stephen King novel, The Dark Tower. Yeah. And I really wish that had been animated instead, because I think it would have worked better. Because I don't know, I think it just would have worked. But it would have been R. It would have been for adults or something. And I think this makes sense because I guess budgetary wise to try to do all these different sets and everything. But it's just a interesting experimentation. Okay. I thought it was worth checking out if you like the whole Predator franchise or you're interested in it.
Cool. All right. That is good to know. So that is Predator
Killer of Killers.
Killer of Killers.
Yes.
And it is on
Hulu. Yes.
And it is a series of animated films, three stories animated. So in the Predator universe.
Yeah, so it apparently came out, it was released, June 5th. Okay. So that's when it was. Fairly recent. So just, a couple of weeks ago.
Well, thank you for the recommendation, Chris. That is great. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up the show. But Chris, how can anybody get a hold of us, correspond with us, and then, of course, lead into plugging our festival?
Sure. Yeah. You can send an email to info@footcandle.org. You can leave us a voicemail via the contact page on the mesh.tv website. You can follow us on Facebook, Foot Candle Film Society, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Twitter. We are Foot Candle Film. Al and I also are on Letterboxd, where we try to track what we're seeing and leave sometimes some quick takes. Do us a favor, if you like the show, consider giving us a star rating, write a review, or share with friends or whatever service you receive your favorite podcast on, because it'll help us reach new listeners. We'd appreciate it. And as we always mention at least once per show, the 2025 Foot Candle Film Festival is coming up September 19th through the 28th. If you're going to be in Western North Carolina, we would love for you to come join us. It will be our 11th annual film festival, so we think it's going to be a good one. We hope you come join us.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up for today. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Foot Candle Films. We will be back next week with some more reviews and news and discussions and maybe recommendations. We'll see. Until then, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.